You're thinking of moving to Reno? Here's some of the top reasons on why you shouldn't. Hey everyone, it's David Tully. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be going over some of the top reasons on why you shouldn't move to Reno. Overall, it's not going to be a negative video at all. It's just going to highlight some of the things that Reno has to improve on and certain things you just can't change about Reno and, unfortunately you're going to have to live with. So if you enjoy this type of content, please make sure to like button and subscribe. And if you have any questions at all about any of the topics I talk about today, just leave them down in the comments below. And if you're thinking about moving or relocating to the area and you need to buy a house and you need help, just reach out. I'd be happy to take care of you. All right, so the first topic I want to touch on are home prices. I know everybody's favorite thing to talk about, but the Reno housing market is absolutely on fire. The median home price in Reno is over $500,000. And to compare it to the rest of the US, which is sitting at about $350,000, that's an over 40% increase. So, if you're looking for a house in the $200,000 to $300,000 price range for a single family home in Reno or Sparks, you're gonna have a very tough time. So if you need to be under that, honestly, you might wanna be looking in other areas other than Reno or Sparks. And even if you're looking in the $300,000 to $400,000 price range, it's still very difficult, very competitive. It's definitely doable, but like I said, you're gonna be competing against 5 to 20 offers on a house, and you're gonna have to pay significantly over the asking price. So this might be one of the biggest factors on why you shouldn't move to Reno. Home prices are pretty ridiculous. All right, so the next topic I wanna touch on is the homeless population. It's unfortunate, and I really wish there weren't any homeless people in the area or at all in general, but it is something that happens. And that could be due to many different factors: drugs, alcohol, gambling, many different factors. Even, I'm sure COVID didn't help. But Reno's homeless population, you're gonna see it mostly downtown in the 4th Street areas, but overall, it's really not that bad. I was in Portland not too long ago, and I would say Portland's homeless population and issue is much bigger than Reno. So, like I said, the homeless population and homeless issue is a thing in many bigger US cities, so you can't say it's just Reno. But if that really bothers you, you might want to think about a different area. All right, so let's talk about gambling. Yes, this is Nevada. We have casinos. We have people who gamble, and you're gonna see it in the gas station. You're gonna see it in the grocery stores. And when I first moved here a long time ago, it was definitely odd to see people gambling in a grocery store while you're buying milk. So if there's something you don't like, it's just something you're just gonna have to get used to, because it's gonna be in the Reno area for some time. And we are a gambling town, and we are a 24-hour town. And if you don't have any issues with gambling, then Reno could certainly be a good spot for you. I honestly enjoy a good single card game of blackjack once in a while for $20 to $40, but I honestly only do that every 5 to 6 months. So I don't really have an issue there. But if you have an issue with casinos and gambling, I would highly recommend a different city for you. All right, so the next thing I want to talk about is the cold and the winter. If you really hate the cold and you don't like the winter months, you don't like snow or driving in it, then honestly, Reno might not be a good spot for you. Overall, the last few years, the winter months have been pretty mild. We had some snow, and we do get blizzards, we do get icy roads. But overall, I would say most snowstorms, honestly, most of the snow is melted the next day, and roads are typically clear by 10 a.m. to noon the next day. And while we can obviously get cold fronts and blizzards that dump a decent amount of snow and the roads get icy for a few days, you just got to be a little bit careful early in the morning and late at night. But like I said, typically it clears up by noon the next day. So overall, it's not too bad. But if you really hate the cold, we're going to be in about the 30s to mid 40s, I would say, in most winter months, and single digits is pretty rare. All right, so let's talk about the climate. Nevada is the driest state in the US. Fortunately, Reno is not as dry as Las Vegas, so that's a huge bonus. But overall, if you have seasonal and outdoor allergies, the dry climate and the heat of the spring and the summer might not be too good for you. And I used to be really used to humid weather, and now I actually prefer the dry heat and the dry climate much more than the humid climate. So hopefully that's something you can get used to. If not, then you might want to avoid, Reno or Nevada in general. All right, so if you're moving to the area, we're gonna have to talk about public transportation. If you don't have a vehicle or family to help you out with carpooling, you're not really gonna have a great time with getting around. Public transportation here is pretty awful. The bus system's okay, but you're probably gonna be waiting 30 to 60 minutes for the next bus. And it's just not a reliable way to get around unless you really have a lot of extra time, to get to your job or to certain places or schools. You're not gonna have a great time. You're probably gonna wanna use Uber, Lyft, or ride sharing services. But I understand that's not practical. It's not reasonably priced. And, to be honest with you, there's not as many Uber and Lyft drivers around due to COVID. Hopefully it comes back soon, but overall, it's not realistic. I completely get it. You're probably gonna wanna get your own car, but if you have to rely on public transportation, you can use the bus. It's just gonna take you longer and it's not as reliable. So another reason you might not wanna live in the area is the elevation. I come from an area where it was at sea level. I was there my whole life, and when I moved to Reno when I was in high school, tried to play football a day or two after moving to the area, and I couldn't breathe when running. So honestly, probably could have done it in a couple weeks after that, but I decided it wasn't great because it was just such a bad feeling not being able to breathe when running. And that doesn't take typically too long. I would say between a few days and a few weeks, depending on what you're doing, running, biking, high exertion exercise. But overall, you get used to it. And another area that's an even higher elevation that you might live in is Northwest Reno or Somerset, which is at about 4,800 to 4,900. So just some things to keep in mind. If you don't like the higher elevation, Reno might not be a good spot for you. All right, so last but not least, let's talk about public education. For a handful of years, Nevada overall was ranked 50th, which is terrible. And only in the last year or two, Nevada's pulled it up to, I would say, in the mid 30s to low 40s for public education. And, while Reno does have certain schools that are good, a handful of good elementaries in Northwest Reno, South Reno, and even in the Sparks areas. But overall, you also have to think about, overcrowding. A lot of our schools are overcrowded. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough schools. And while they are building more elementaries, middle schools, we probably need even more because some of the newer schools are being overcrowded already. So overall, public education in Reno isn't great, but there are a handful of good elementaries, middle schools, and high schools. So that's just something to keep in mind. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching my video. These are just some of the reasons on why you shouldn't move to Reno. Some of these things they can obviously change and improve on, but several of these things like, the elevation, the dryness, the cold, the gambling, a lot of these things are just not gonna change and you're just gonna have to get used to. So if any of these things bother you, you might wanna think about a different city. Overall, I love Reno. It's one of my favorite places. Like I said, I'm originally from Hawaii and a lot of people ask me why I live here. I think Reno is absolutely beautiful. It's close proximity to California, the Bay Area. You can drive to many different places. You can go to Lake Tahoe, Donner Lake, Pyramid Lake. There's just so many great things about the Reno area. So don't take this as a negative video, but just wanted to give you some insights on what it's like to live here. And if you have any questions at all, just leave them down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching my video. Catch you on the next one. Take care.